Join our growing YouTube family. Subscribe now and be part of every exciting moment. Ever had a similar encounter or strange moment? We'd be thrilled if you'd share it with us in the comments. Who knows, your story might be featured next. Began, as these things often do, in the quiet, desperate hours of the night. Sarah, a new mother, knew the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones, stealing your thoughts and leaving only a dull thrum of worry. Her baby, Lily, just wouldn't settle, crying, always crying. Sarah would rock her, pace the dim bedroom, and whisper reassurances that felt hollow even to her own ears. Her husband, Mark, bless his heart, would wake, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, offering to help. But Sarah always refused. There was something else, she insisted, something Lily could feel. A cold spot, she'd say, pointing vaguely towards the ceiling. Up there, in the attic. Mark, ever the pragmatist, would sigh. Old houses had drafts, he'd argue, but Sarah, she felt it watching them. The house itself, that old Victorian they'd bought with dreams of a fresh start, felt like an unblinking eye. Particularly that high attic window. They moved in, full of that giddy, exhausted excitement that only new parents and new homeowners can truly understand. And then, Lily arrived. A tiny, perfect bundle of life who, it turned out, had a rather insistent set of lungs. Days brought a temporary reprieve. Sunlight flooded the living room, making the previous night's terrors feel like a distant dream. Mark would assemble Lily's crib, humming off-key, while Sarah watched, a fragile smile on her lips. But her gaze would always drift to the attic access panel in the hallway ceiling. The smile faded. A faint frown creased her brow. Quietly, "Mark," she asked, her voice quiet, "did you ever go up there? Properly, I mean, when we were checking out the house?" Reassuring, "Yeah, quick peek," he'd assure her. "Dust and cobwebs. Nothing exciting, just storage. Why?" Sarah's voice dropped, barely a whisper now. Whispering. "I keep hearing things. Faint, like a whisper, and sometimes I feel a chill, even with the heating on, like someone just walked past." Calmly, "It's probably just the wind in the eaves, honey," Mark said, his voice laced with that familiar, rational comfort. "Or our imagination. We're tired." He gave her a reassuring smile, but Sarah didn't return it. Her eyes were still fixed on the ceiling, as if waiting. Later that day, Lily was finally nestled in her new crib, utterly, wonderfully asleep. Sarah stood over her, gazing at that tiny, peaceful face. She reached out to adjust the blanket, a gesture of pure maternal tenderness, and then she froze. A faint scratching sound directly above, in the attic. It was soft, insistent, like fingernails dragging across old wood. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She backed away from the crib slowly, her eyes darting between her sleeping baby and the silent, menacing ceiling. The scratching stopped. Silence. Utter, unnerving silence. She shook her head, trying to dismiss it. Imagination. Tiredness. Old house settling. But a cold, insistent prickle of unease crawled up her spine. It was no draft, it was deliberate. That night, Mark was making dinner. The comforting smells of garlic and tomato filled the kitchen. But Sarah, stirring a mug of tea, was pale. Her hands trembled slightly. "I saw her, Mark." Mark turned from the stove, a spatula in hand, a look of tired patience on his face. "Saw who, honey?" "The girl," Sarah said, her voice barely steady. "In the attic window. Just for a second. Pale face, dark eyes, staring. Right at Lily's room." Mark put down the spatula. His expression changed, became serious. "Sarah, you're exhausted. You're seeing things. There's no girl. It's an old reflection, or a trick of the light. The glass is ancient, warped." "It wasn't." Sarah's voice rose, desperation creeping in. "She was real." And she looked so sad and cold, like she was waiting for someone. Mark crossed to her, putting a firm, comforting hand on her arm. Hey, we're stressed. This house, the baby, the lack of sleep, it's getting to us. Let's get some rest, okay? And tomorrow, I promise you, if you're still worried, I'll go up into the attic. I'll clear it out. We'll even get it insulated. Put an end to these cold spots." Sarah looked at him, her eyes pleading, wet with unshed tears. "Just promise me you'll be careful." "Always," he said, kissing her forehead. But the worry etched on Sarah's face remained, deeply. The next day, Mark, armed with a powerful flashlight and a dust mask that made him look like a hesitant astronaut, finally ventured into the dusty, cobwebbed gloom. Dust motes danced in the weak light, filtering through the grimy window. He grumbled to himself, kicking at a pile of old newspapers. Tricks of the light. Right. More like tricks of my wife's sleep-deprived brain. He started moving boxes, generations of forgotten junk. Cobwebs clung to everything like spectral lace. He moved a particularly large, moth-eaten trunk, heavy with who knew what. And underneath it, he found something. A small, wooden toy horse, painted a faded blue, chipped and worn, but undeniably well-loved. He picked it up, brushing off the thick layer of dust, and then he saw it, scrawled on the dusty floorboards beneath where the trunk had been. Barely visible were childish drawings, crude stick figures, a simple house, and one recurring image. A small girl, drawn with large empty eyes, looking out a window. Mark's brow furrowed. He swept his flashlight beam across the wall. More drawings, and then, etched deep into the old wood, faded but clear, a single name. Ilara. A sudden sharp chill filled the air, a profound cold that had nothing to do with drafts or insulation. Mark felt the hairs on his arm stand on end, a prickling sensation that traveled up his neck. And then, he heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper, like a child sighing, right next to his ear. A breath on his skin, though nothing was there. He spun around, flashlight beam cutting frantically through the gloom. Nothing. Just the dusty, silent attic. But it wasn't silent anymore. He could feel it. A presence. He backed away slowly, clutching the toy horse in his hand. His skepticism, his logic, his comfortable, rational world. It was cracking, shattering. That night. Oh, that night. The crib in Lily's nursery was empty. The baby monitor on the dresser emitted only static. A low, hissing, empty static. Sarah burst into the room, her eyes wide, wild with terror. "Lily, where is she?" Mark, behind her, his face ashen, held up the little blue toy horse. His voice was barely a whisper. The attic. They raced to the hallway, looking up. The attic access panel was no longer sealed. It was slightly ajar. A dark, gaping maw in the ceiling. "No, no, no," Sarah cried. A frantic, desperate sound. Mark, without a second thought, grabbed the pull cord, yanking down the folding ladder with a loud wooden thud. He scrambled up, his movements clumsy with fear. Sarah right behind him. The attic, darker now, impossibly colder. The moon, a mere sliver, barely pierced the grimy window, casting a single weak beam of light. And in that beam, by the window, stood a small figure. It was the girl. Her back was to them. She was tiny, dressed in what looked like a faded, old-fashioned nightgown, the fabric thin and ghostly. And in her arms, cradled gently, silently, was Lily. Lily, who was not crying, not screaming, but staring. With wide, unblinking eyes, she gazed at something only she could see. Sarah gasped, a raw, choked sound of pure agony and terror. Lily. The girl slowly turned. Her face was pale, almost translucent in the dim light. Her eyes, oh, her eyes, they were huge, dark, and filled with an ancient, unbearable sorrow. She didn't blink. She didn't speak. She just stared. Not at them, not at Sarah or Mark, but at Lily. A deep, consuming gaze. Mark stepped forward, his voice a strained whisper, barely audible above the frantic pounding of his own heart. Please, please give us our baby. The girl's head tilted slightly, a movement that was unnervingly inhuman. Her gaze remained fixed on Lily, utterly unyielding. Sarah pushed past Mark, her maternal instinct overpowering every ounce of fear. Please, she pleaded, her voice breaking. She's just a baby. Don't take her. Don't take her from me. The air in the attic grew colder, a biting, supernatural chill that seemed to steal their breath, to freeze the very words in their throats. The girl extended one translucent hand, her fingers impossibly long, and gently, oh so gently, stroked Lily's cheek. Lily, their baby, made a soft, gurgling sound, almost a giggle. Then, a low, sorrowful whisper filled the attic. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. A child's voice, ancient and echoing. She's like me. She sees. She can be with me. Forever. Sarah's eyes darted frantically from the girl to Lily. Lily's eyes, still wide and unblinking, were fixed on the girl. A strange, serene, utterly alien expression on her tiny face. No! Sarah cried, tears streaming down her face, a raw, primal scream forming in her throat. She has her own life. She can't. You can't take her from us. The girl's grip on Lily tightened, almost imperceptibly. Her eyes, so full of sadness, seemed to hold a desperate, crushing longing. Mark, seeing the subtle shift, the almost human hesitation, remembered the name. Elara, he said, his voice soft, urgent. Elara, is that your name? The girl's head snapped to him, her dark eyes flickering, a momentary spark of something akin to recognition. Mark continued, his voice gentle but firm. Elara, you don't have to be alone anymore. We can help you. We can make sure you're not alone. But you have to let Lily go. She needs her mother. She needs us. The girl hesitated. Her gaze shifted back to Lily, then to Sarah, her eyes searching. And then, finally, to the small wooden horse clutched in Mark's trembling hand. The faded blue toy. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, her arms loosened. She looked at Sarah, her dark eyes conveying a desperate, silent plea that transcended words, a longing for connection, for belonging. Sarah, Tears streaming down her face, reached out, her hands trembling uncontrollably, and gently, ever so gently, took Lily from the girl's arms. Lily stirred, whimpered, and burrowed into Sarah's chest, her tiny body warm and real. The girl watched them, a profound, heartbreaking sadness washing over her spectral features. Then, she slowly turned back to the window, her form seeming to shimmer, to grow fainter, more translucent. The whisper, barely audible now, faded into the chill air. "Don't forget me." Her form dissolved, dissipating into the pale moonlight, until only the faint dust motes remained, dancing in the silent air. The biting chill in the attic slowly receded, replaced by the faint scent of old wood and dust. Sarah clutched Lily tightly, rocking her back and forth, sobbing with relief, with the sheer terror of what had almost been. Mark put an arm around her, his own eyes wet with unshed tears. He looked towards the empty window, a profound understanding settling over him. They had faced something ancient, something sorrowful, and they had, against all odds, endured. The next morning, the sunlight streaming through the nursery window felt like a blessing. Lily was back in her crib, cooing happily, playing with her colorful mobile. Sarah watched her, a peaceful smile on her face, though the exhaustion of the night still lingered in the deep circles under her eyes. Mark entered, holding something small and framed. It was an old, sepia-toned photograph. A little girl, no older than Alara, standing in front of what was unmistakably their house. The same attic window visible in the background, staring out. "I found this," he said, his voice quiet, "in one of the old boxes in the attic, along with some letters. Her name was Alara Vance. She died in 1918. Spanish flu, right here in this house. She was just 8 years old." Sarah took the photo, her fingers tracing the faint image of the child's face, the same large, dark eyes. "She was just lonely," Sarah whispered, "and she wanted someone to play with, someone who could see her." Mark nodded, his gaze distant. "We could have kept the house empty, tried to ignore her, tried to board up that window, but she wasn't going to leave us alone until we acknowledged her, until someone understood her sorrow." He looked at the photograph, then at Sarah. "What do we do now?" Sarah looked at Lily, who smiled up at her, a beautiful, innocent, living smile. Then, a quiet resolve settled in her eyes as she glanced at the attic access panel. "We don't forget her," she said, her voice firm, gentle. "We give her peace, and we make this house a home for everyone who belongs here." Later that day, the attic was clean. No more dust, no cobwebs, no oppressive chill. A small, carefully placed child's wooden rocking chair sat by the window, catching the afternoon sun. On the chair, next to a fresh vase of wildflowers, lay the little blue toy horse, a quiet offering. A soft breeze rustled the curtains, and for a moment, the air felt lighter, warmer. A profound sense of calm settled over the space. Downstairs, in the nursery, Sarah hummed softly as she changed Lily's diaper. Lily giggled, reaching out for Sarah's hair with tiny, grasping fingers. Sarah glanced up, a faint, knowing smile on her lips. She felt it now. Not a chill, not a presence that caused fear, but a gentle companionship. A quiet watchfulness. The little girl who stared from the attic was still there, yes. But she was not a nightmare anymore. She was part of the home, finally, truly, peacefully, at rest.